Hello, employers, and thank you so much for joining us this afternoon for the information for employers about the Continuous Professional Learning Program webinar. If you would like closed caption, please click Show Captions at the bottom of your screen. And we will be recording today's session, and we'll be sharing a follow-up email later this week that will include the recording, the slides, some links to resources, and a link to a feedback survey. But just a heads up that the recording will only include the PowerPoint and voices. No one's video or names would appear in the recording, and it's only going to be shared with those who registered for today's session. The College of Early Childhood Educators acknowledges that our organization and profession are part of a colonial system. We are all living, working, learning, and playing on the traditional territories of many Indigenous nations. As employers and sector partners supporting RECEs who are members of a relationship and care-based profession, we encourage you to actively educate yourselves about the historical and current realities for First Nation, Inuit, and Métis peoples. As treaty people, we all have an important responsibility to honor all of our relations and dedicate ourselves to continually uncovering the truth and taking actions for reconciliation and change for all children, their families, RECEs, and their communities. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. My name is Deb Gores. I'm a registered early childhood educator and a professional practice analyst at the college. And I'm joined by two of my colleagues here today that will be co-facilitating. So I'll allow them to introduce themselves quickly.
Hi, I'm Melanie Dixon. I'm a registered early childhood educator and director of professional practice at the college. Welcome to this afternoon's session.
Hi everyone, I'm Safra Najmuddin, also an RECE, and I work alongside Deb as a professional practice analyst. I will be on chat monitoring duty today, so if you do have any questions, feel free to pop it in the chat and I'll try to answer them as best as I can. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Okay, so yes, like Safra said, she'll be supporting the chat, so please feel free to pose your questions there throughout, but we will be leaving some time at the end for a Q&A period as well. So just a really brief overview of what we'll cover this afternoon. We will go over the Continuous Professional Learning Program requirements in detail, talk about the educational components and the portfolio cycle. We'll go through the compliance process, and then we'll finish up with some ways that you can support the RECEs in your learning communities. Okay, so really quickly, just want to briefly cover the college's mandate, which is to serve and protect the public interest. This mandate comes from the Early Childhood Educators Act, where that piece of legislation also outlines the college's responsibilities and duties around regulating the profession in Ontario. And so those are displayed here on the screen. So the college has responsibility around setting and maintaining the registration requirements for entry to practice into the profession. The college has responsibility around maintaining a public register of its members to create transparency between members of the profession and members of the public. So I'm sure you're all familiar with the public register, where all RECEs are visible and searchable there. The college has responsibilities around setting and maintaining the code of ethics and standards of practice for the profession. So, of course, that document outlines the values, the skills, the knowledge, and responsibilities that all RECEs have an ethical and legal responsibility to uphold. Of course, continuing competence. So that's referring to the Continuous Professional Learning Program. As you'll learn today, it is part of legislation that RECEs participate in an ongoing learning program, which is the Continuous Professional Learning Program. And so it is a responsibility of the college to develop and maintain an ongoing learning program for members. And then the complaints and discipline process. So another responsibility of the college is to have a complaints and discipline process in place that holds those small proportion of RECEs who are falling below the standards of practice, hold them accountable, which also supports the integrity of the profession as well. So in a nutshell, that's the main ways that the regulation takes place. Okay, so let's jump right in to the continuous professional learning program. So RECEs are regulated professionals, right? There's lots of different aspects when we talk about what it means to be a regulated professional. We have a protected title, registered early childhood educator. These are protected titles under law. Meaning that only members who are in good standing can use those titles, and that supports that public trust in the profession. RECEs have responsibility around ethical decision making and using their professional judgment in those decisions and sometimes complex situations that they have to work through. Things like being accountable, upholding our code and standards, applying skills and knowledge, and then the green piece of the pie there, which is around engaging in continuous professional learning. So it is an aspect of demonstrating professionalism, demonstrating leadership is around, engaging in ongoing learning throughout an RECE's career. And the public trusts that RECEs are staying up to date in their knowledge and their skills and their training so that they can practice to the best of their abilities and provide care and for children that to the best that they can. And that's done through engaging in ongoing learning throughout the career. Okay, so like I mentioned a couple slides ago, it is part of the Early Childhood Educators Act. So it was written in as a regulation, the Continuous Professional Learning Regulation, which requires all registered early childhood educators to fulfill requirements of the college's CPL program. And this is regardless of an RECE status, employment status, role, or setting. So even for RECEs who may not be practicing right now or not working directly in the sector, in order to maintain registration with the college, all RECEs do need to complete their annual CPL requirements. So the CPL program is made up of educational components, which are the expectations for practice module, and the sexual abuse prevention program, and then the portfolio cycle. And these are mandatory CPL requirements, which we will be going through in detail today. And an RECE certificate of registration could be suspended if they are not completing their CPL program requirements. And we'll also share some more information around that shortly. And there's a little employer newsletter link there, which you'll receive. When you receive the slides, you'll be able to click on that, but it has 6 facts about the continuous professional learning program that could be supportive to you. Okay, so, in addition to the CPL program being a requirement for registration, it's so much more than that too. It's, part of the culture of early childhood education is to really commit ourselves to engaging in lifelong learning. There's so many benefits that come from engaging in ongoing learning throughout an RECE's career. And that quote there is from How Does Learning Happen?, which tells us that children are curious, competent, and rich in potential, but it also speaks about educators this way. It says that educators are curious, they're competent, and they're rich in potential. And one way to feed those pieces are through engaging in ongoing learning and really committing yourself to being a lifelong learner. So, participating in ongoing learning demonstrates an RECE's professionalism. It's linked to professionalism, linked to leadership. It supports your ethical and professional responsibilities, to enhance knowledge about current research and practice. It also supports RECEs with not just staying up to date with changes in the sector, but changes in society as well, because as professionals working in a relationship-based practice, they're working with humans all day. And it's important that RECEs are staying up to date with changes that are happening in society so they can have conversations with children or conversations with families and colleagues when required. And it also supports and promotes a culture of growth and advancement within the profession when RECEs are engaged in ongoing learning throughout their careers. Okay, so here's a look at the overall continuous professional learning program. The educational components are the requirements for those RECEs who are in their first year of membership. So the educational components are the expectations for practice module and the sexual abuse prevention program. And RECEs have their full first year of membership to complete these pieces. And once they complete them, they do not have to do them again. Then after an RECE renews their membership for the first time and moving forward, their CPL requirement is going to be the CPL Portfolio Cycle, which is an annual requirement that we will be going into detail about today. All right, so let's begin with the educational component. So first is the expectations for practice module. So what is it? It's an online module. It's free. And it's going to explain in RECE's professional responsibilities and information about things like being a regulated professional. So what's included in that? What does that mean for them? It's going to cover topics of professional misconduct, incompetence, and incapacity around those complaints and discipline processes. And then it's also going to cover some fundamental practice areas in early childhood education, such as the importance of relationships, professional boundaries, supporting positive interactions with children, professional supervision of children, all these fundamental practice areas, the expectations for practice module will touch on. The module takes about 2 hours to complete, and it also includes a quiz that has 15 questions, and the member needs to get 80% on that in order to successfully complete it, but they have an unlimited amount of times to take that quiz and receive that 80%. And once the member completes the quiz, they will get a certificate letting them know that they've completed it. Okay. The sexual abuse prevention program is also a free online program that supports RECE's commitment to the personal safety, health, and well-being of all children. It empowers RECEs with proactive approaches to help prevent child sexual abuse, and it helps reinforce the position of trust they have with families and the community. So the sexual abuse prevention program was launched in 2022. So it's a newer program that the majority of the membership has now completed. So now it's a requirement for all RECEs as they're entering the profession in their first year of membership. The sexual abuse prevention program takes about 5 to 6 hours to complete in total, but we'll get into some different ways to engage with the content because it can be, emotionally distressing to learn about sexual abuse prevention. So we'll be sharing some strategies around that shortly. And the sexual abuse prevention program also includes a knowledge validation test and quiz that I will talk about on the next slide here. Okay, so going into a bit more detail around what is the sexual abuse prevention program and what it includes. So there's 3 required elements to the program. The first 2, commit to kids and teach retells. These were developed in partnership with the Canadian Centre for Child Protection. So they're a Canadian organization that does a lot of work around sexual abuse prevention. And so those two pieces were developed by their organization. So Commit to Kids is the longest element of the three. It consists of 8 modules. They're video modules, but members have the option to read the transcripts if that's easier to engage with the content that way. And then there's a knowledge validation test for this element where there's 20 questions on the test, and members need to get 80% in order to successfully complete Commit to Kids. But again, there's an unlimited amount of times that the quiz or the test can be taken. With Commit to Kids, the focus is more on the school age group. So that's why we've also included Teach Retells as a required element. This component is a shorter video. It's about a 20-minute video, and it focuses more on the preschool age groups and the younger age groups. And there's a quiz associated with that has 4 questions, and 100% on that quiz is required to successfully complete that portion. Again, the RECEs have an unlimited amount of times that they can take that quiz. And a certificate will be provided when Commit to Kids and Teach Retells are successfully completed. So they'll get a certificate for Commit to Kids, and they'll get a certificate for Teach Retells. The third element are college resources to review. So these are resources that were developed by the college. There's no associated quiz or anything like that with the third element here. So the 3 resources, the professional advisory on duty to report. This is a resource that explains what an RECE's duty to report is under the Child, Youth, and Family Services Act. It provides a lot of information around, ethical decision-making and using professional judgment when you may have a concern about a child or family. It has information around indicators that a child may be in need of protection, and then also information around how RECEs can care for themselves after they've carried out the duty to report, because we all know it can be an isolating and emotional experience. So there's information in there around those pieces. The second required resource is racism and bias in reporting to child welfare. So this resource highlights the reality that Black and Indigenous children and families are overreported to CAS or Children's Aid Societies, and so they're overrepresented in our child welfare system in Ontario. And so this resource explains that reality and provides some information around the importance of reflecting on our beliefs and biases when we do have a concern about a child or family, to try and prevent any over-reporting based on bias or prejudice. And then the last required resource is sexual abuse prevention program scenarios. So there were 2 scenarios that were developed, again, focusing on the younger age groups, just to walk an RECE through the decision-making and contemplate some different things around whether a report is required. And so with those resources, the expectation is that an RECE reviews the resources and reflects on them. But like I said, there's no quiz associated with that piece, and there will be no certificate provided for the college resources to review. So in a nutshell, those are the 3 required elements of the sexual abuse prevention program. Okay, so here are some helpful tips when RECEs are getting ready to engage with that sexual abuse prevention program content, because, of course, learning about sexual abuse prevention can be challenging. Engaging with the content can be. And so things like, letting your RECEs know that the program can be completed in multiple sessions. It doesn't have to be completed all in one sitting. It takes around 5 to 6 hours to complete in total. So that can be broken up into smaller chunks of time. And a reminder that RECEs have their full first year of membership to complete the program. So encouraged to take breaks if that is supportive to them. Or for some RECEs, they may just want to get it done and over with and would rather just complete it all in one sitting, but just knowing that that is an option to take breaks and do it a little bit at a time. For support, an option is always to complete the program with others. So perhaps you have a number of new members on staff, and you want to suggest that maybe you allow some time to have some debrief discussions, or allowing some time to complete the program together if that's an option, or completing it on their own as well if that's what they prefer. So I talked about the fact that the Commit to Kids has video modules, and Teach Retells is also a video module. But if watching the videos isn't the best option, RECEs also have the ability to read the transcripts. So there's transcripts available under each of the videos, and reading the transcript is also an effective way to go through the program. And in particular for Commit to Kids, modules 2 to 5 includes testimonials. And so these can be skipped, testimonials from survivors and perpetrators. So, we've heard that of course can be challenging to watch or engage with. So those testimonials can be skipped, and they're not required for completion. Some other supports for members when engaging with the prevention program are things like we have instructions for completing the sexual abuse prevention program and confirming compliance. So highly recommend that you encourage your staff who are completing the prevention program to start out with reading the instructions. It provides, all the information around where to access the sexual abuse prevention program, what are the required elements, how to confirm compliance, all of those things. So definitely recommend starting out with reading that resource. We also have a resource called Caring for Self and Others. So this resource was developed to provide information around how our RECEs can either care for themselves as they're about to engage with the content, or as they're engaging with the content, and how they might care for others in their learning circles or whatever it might be. So there's information around those strategies for engaging with the content, and also some contact information for external supports if that's required ever. We've also been offering trauma-informed care workshops for members and employers since the launch of the sexual abuse prevention program in 2022. So a lot of you here today may have attended one of those trauma-informed care workshops. They are offered in collaboration with the Ontario Coalition of Rape Crisis Centers. We've had great turnout for that, and it really supports RECEs with taking a trauma-informed care approach with completing the program, but then also provides information around trauma-informed care when for other supports in their lives or with colleagues, just an overall information session around trauma-informed care and how we can apply that to different aspects of our work and personal life. And then the college also offers assistance to members with navigating the C3P site, which is the Canadian Centre for Child Protection site. And we have a slide on that that we'll cover, but just know that, if an RECE is struggling with something, whether it's tech or something like that, that they can reach out to the college for support. Okay, so now we're going to cover how to access these educational components. So both the Expectations for Practice module and the Sexual Abuse Prevention program are accessed through my college account. So the RECE needs to log in to their account with their email and password. And then they're going to click on the Continuous Professional Learning tab, which is the last one. There's a screenshot there in the different tabs that are available. And depending on which module they're looking to complete, they just click on the appropriate button, and they're going to be connected to the appropriate platform. Just also want to note here that we do have videos of how to access the expectations for practice module, and then a video as well of how to access the sexual abuse prevention program. So it's a step-by-step guide, basically video guide, if any RECE is having some challenges with accessing those pieces. And those videos can be accessed on our website and on our YouTube account as well. All right, so let's look at the expectations for practice module learning platform first. So when a member clicks on and I should say, I'll go back to here quickly, only members who are required to complete the expectations for practice module will have access to that button that through their My College account. So an RECE who's not in their first year of membership and doesn't need to complete the expectations for practice module won't have access to that button there. So when someone clicks on access the expectations for practice module, this is what they're going to be connected to. This is what the learning platform looks like. On the main dashboard of the learning platform, they're going to be able to access the expectations for practice module by clicking on the My Courses title. And so My Courses is just in the middle there. And so after completion, they would be able to access their certificate under the certificate of completion tile, which is on the right. And then the blue tiles at the bottom are going to bring the member to the CPL FAQs and college resources that may be supportive to them as a new member. So encourage them to check those out as well. And those resources and FAQs are also, of course, available on the college's main website. Okay, so to the sexual abuse prevention program. So when a member clicks on access the sexual abuse prevention program in their My College account, they're going to be then directed to the Canadian Centre for Child Protection's website or learning platform, which is, here's a couple screenshots of what that's going to look like. So one thing to note is that the first time that an RECE accesses the platform, they will have to activate the online training. So they'll see a prompt for them to activate the training. And then once they activate it, they will have access to the content. So on the main dashboard there called My Library, so there's a couple of different options across the top of the right-hand screen. So under My Library is where they're going to be able to access the sexual abuse prevention program components. So you can see there that the instructions are available there. College resources to review are available there. And then also Commit to Kids and Tea Tree Tells are going to be available. All of the required elements of the program are going to have that pink required tile. So that's an indicator that those pieces are the required components. But just a note that once a member completes those required components, that pink required tile isn't going to go anywhere. It's going to remain there, but just know that that those are the required elements for completion of the program. And one thing to note is that in order to access Tea Tree Tells, because of the order that it's in, you do need to scroll down on the page. So always a good reminder to let your RECEs know who are completing the sexual abuse prevention program that they do need to scroll down in order to access and find the Tea Tree Tells. And looking at the Tea Tree Tells, you can see that one of the pieces have the required tiles. So that's the piece where they're going to access the video module and then the quiz. But the other three are additional resources that they're very welcome to take a look at and make their way through, but they're not required for completion. Okay, and to finish up this section, I just want to highlight one of the ways that members can confirm that they've completed the educational requirements through their My College account. So this is also going to be accessible under that CPL tab, so the Continuous Professional Learning tab in My College account. If they scroll down, they're going to come across a table that looks like this. It's going to say educational requirements, and it's going to have the 3 modules. So expectations for practice, commit to kids, and teach retells. The resources to review under the sexual abuse prevention program is not here because that's a component that the college is not able to track completion of. But for expectations for practice, commit to kids, and teach retells, when a member successfully completes each of these elements, data is reported to the college. And so this is one way that members can go and check to ensure that they have completed these pieces. The completion date will appear on the left-hand side there. And it's one way that they can check for themselves to make sure they have these pieces complete before they go to renew their membership.
So here we go, CPL Portfolio Cycle. So we've just covered the 2 educational components, which are requirements for all members. All of us have completed them if we've been around for a while, and any new member as they join the college, complete those in the first year of practice. And then the following year after their first renewal, that's when they begin the CPL Portfolio Cycle. And that's an ongoing process for all of us. And for those of you who are present here and were members prior to 2022, you know that we did make changes to the CPL portfolio process. It is a 1-year portfolio cycle. It is still framed in self-reflection, self-directed learning, and we're also looking to ensure that the members are creating linkages to the code and standards in their learning. And every year we have to determine what is going to be our professional learning goal for the year. So annually, it's a moment for RECEs to reflect on their practice, to develop a professional learning goal for that year, plan for activities, engaging in activities or experiences, and document the professional learning. So there's the goal, learning activities and experiences, and then documentation. So there are 2 required components. There's the reflection and planning tool and the record of professional learning. I'll go over each of those in a little bit more detail, and also show you where these can be found on the college's website as well a little later on. So the reflection and planning tool, that's to be completed by RECEs at the beginning of their new membership year. So our requirements are based on our renewal year. So for example, I renew in January, and so my portfolio is kind of matches a calendar year. It doesn't work out like that for everyone. And this, again, something to be aware of, and you very likely already know, all of us, we have basically 12 different kind of renewal cycles. So we have members who are renewing every month. So this is to be completed roughly in the first couple months of that new membership year. And it is a 3-part, there's 3 parts to it. And in essence, we're looking to do some self-reflection on what's transpired over the past practice year. What is the REC anticipating in the upcoming year? For example, what might be it could be their employer is going to be implementing a new program of sorts. So that could be an example of one of the considerations they're going to be doing, or that there's been changes in policies and procedures. How is that going to impact their practice? Perhaps the college has published a new practice resource, a practice guideline, or professional advisory. Those are all sorts of things that they can consider in doing that kind of initial reflection. And in going, they're also going to, more often than not, an RECE might have more than one area of interest, or feel have a variety of areas where they would like to explore or further their learning. But really, it is taking time to hone in on what is the key priority, and then developing a goal around that. And thinking about what are some of the activities that they could do, or experiences that they could have that would support them towards that goal. So in the handbook, and as well available separately as a separate handout or resource, is this diagram of examples of CPL activities. And in the center, we've centered some of the potential action words around this. Our learning can come in the form of contributing, creating, leading, reading, reflecting, reviewing, sharing, and in a variety of different forms of individual learning, learning with a peer, or learning in a community of practice. So again, participating in a community of practice could be one of the focuses. A few years back around the time of the pandemic, when we had 3 goals to create at that time, one of my goals was to participate in an online community of practice. And we actually did that within our own teams, since we were all working online at that time. And others could be looking at job shadowing, bringing a scenario to a team staff meeting for discussion. So as employers, think about ways that you could support some of these activities or these experiences. We do encourage RECs to share their learning goals with their employer, because there may be opportunities for them to have those experiences or do some of those activities within the context of their work, depending on what they're looking at doing. The second part, or the second component of the portfolio, is the record of professional learning. That's divided into 2 sections. Section A is completed throughout the portfolio cycle as RECs are engaging in their activities or experiences. So they're documenting the dates, the activity that took place, some form of documentation that demonstrates engagement, and consider what are some of the next steps that they might take. How was it relevant to their practice, or perhaps not? At the end of the year, as they're preparing for renewal, is the time to take a look at the portfolio, ensure that it is complete and up to date. And there's section B, which is really final reflections on the learning that took place over the past year. And that process may also lend to providing some ideas around priorities for the next year. Sometimes exploration of a topic may lead to a further deepening desire to further explore that topic, or that there's an offshoot from that, or the RECE creates a totally different goal the next year. Alrighty, so forms of documentation. This is also included in the CPL Portfolio Handbook and is also available as a standalone resource. So we want to encourage RECs to think beyond some of the traditional ways of documentation aka a certificate. Really taking time to take notes during a webinar or as they're reading an article or listening to a podcast and taking some reflection notes. That is also a form of documentation. And also for those who their preference isn't necessarily written, there are possibilities to demonstrate learning through other ways, be it through mapping, graphics, imagery, and so also audio. So if someone likes to tell a story or relay their experience, there's nothing that prevents them from creating an audio file or a video, as long as if they're required to submit their portfolio, that they're able to do that with relative ease. All right, so this is just going to provide a couple examples of a goal and a type of learning activity in form of documentation. The topic area broadly is family engagement. So let's say we have an RECE who wants to increase their knowledge around family engagement strategies. The other thing I'd like to note that we could have 10 RECEs choose a similar goal to this. What their focus or how they approach it and what they're going to take out of it will look very likely like 10 different ways and 10 different outcomes. So that's one of their focuses. One of the activities that they could do is to read our practice guideline on communication and collaboration. That speaks to general principles around communication and collaboration, as well as more specifically with families, with colleagues, with other professionals and community partners. So in this case, another activity could be that they review the pause and reflect on family engagement. Many of our practice guidelines include scenarios with reflection questions. What's fun about this resource is that pause and reflect would also act as documentation because it's a fillable reflection, pause and reflect sheet. And so then they would then save their notes and reflections. It could be contained within that pause and reflect, or notes and reflections separate to that. Let's say another RECE supports placement students, has noticed that sometimes a student may not have as much comfort with those initial engagements and communication with families. So for them, that's one of the things they're looking to do and figure out how to support students on that front. They again could use this resource, and there's another pause and reflect around communication with families. And they could take the time with the student to review that pause and reflect and have some discussion around it. And then they take note of that in their record of professional learning. So it's important to note that the college doesn't identify a specific number of learning hours or activities. The choice is left up to each individual member. And what that looks like for them is going to vary. The handbook and the components can be downloaded and printed or saved electronically. We also offer the opportunity to receive a hard copy of the portfolio handbook. And whichever way they decide to maintain their portfolio is up to them. It could be entirely electronically, paper-based, or a hybrid of both, as long as they're keeping their completed portfolios, for at least 2 years and are able to provide it to the college as needed. We have a variety of resources on our CPL Portfolio webpage. A few of them I have mentioned. We do have completed examples of the portfolios as well. And then members can also, we highly encourage members to consider the resources that have been developed by the college to support related learning, and or even as a focus for their goal. So in terms of the compliance processes, as many of you are members, you recognize, you're aware that we're confirming compliance with the CPL requirements when we renew. So 2 months before our renewal, we get RECs receive their notice that their renewal period is open, and they have until the end, at latest, the end of their renewal month to renew. If they don't renew by then, the following month, they're going to incur a late fee of $50. And it's at that time when, upon renewal, that the REC confirms compliance with the program. And this is basically how it appears on the renewal form. When it's the first year of their first renewal, they're going to see the expectations for practice and the sexual abuse prevention program. In the years following that is a more generic statement that says, I confirm that I have complied with the CPL program requirements for the past membership year. And RECEs need to respond honestly. It's yes if it's completed, no if it's not. Answering no isn't going to prevent the renewal from happening as long as all the other renewal criteria has been met. The renewal will be processed. If they haven't completed the CPL for whatever reason, the college will follow up with an email to provide instructions and timelines around meeting those CPL requirements. As mentioned earlier, we do receive completion data for expectations for practice and the prevention program. And it's important for members to understand that making a false declaration, so saying yes when it's really no, is could be considered as professional misconduct. So if a member has extenuating circumstances that really impacts their capacity to be completing their CPL program requirements, so for example, a maternity or a parental leave, an extended illness, disability, bereavement, or personal hardship, they can submit a request for deferral. They have to submit supporting documentation to support that extenuating circumstance, and the college reviews that and grants the deferral or denies it if it doesn't meet the threshold. That button is available again through my college account under the Continuous Professional Learning Program. So we have, at the beginning of the month, actually, we relaunched the CPL program audits. We had launched our very first one back in March of 2020, and then we know what happened then. So we have relaunched the program again, and so a randomly selected group of members are in an audit period right now. So what we audit are the members' CPL portfolio records. We confirm that they're in compliance, and it's an opportunity for us to confirm that member understanding around completion of the portfolio, and create any new resources as needed, or enhance or improve our communications related to where we're seeing any problem areas. Members have 30 days to submit their portfolios. If we haven't received them within 30 days, then they're sent a notice of intention to suspend, and they're provided another 60 days to submit their portfolios, which includes the reflection and planning tool, the record, and some documentation or evidence that they've participated in those activities. So what happens if they're not compliant? There is, it could lead to a suspension of their certificate. So the non-compliance process roughly is about they have about 90 days after they've, entered that non-compliance process. The first 30 days, and then an additional 60 days after we provided them a notice of intention to suspend. If they don't come into compliance within that time frame, then we do suspend their certificate, and they're no longer able to practice the profession, and that includes working in any other positions within licensed childcare, the kindergarten program. If it's those are viewed as working in scope of practice, they can't use the titles, the designations, and they must reinstate their certificate before, have their certificate reinstated before they can begin to practice again. And obviously, before the reinstatement happens, they have to complete their CPL requirements. So the implications for you as employers is that if your staff member is suspended, they're not able to work, and they're not able to work within, especially if you're working in the licensed childcare setting, or if they're working in kindergarten. Those are two examples. But if they're required to be registered in order to work, then they can't be at that time until they reinstate. All right. Well, this has gone by very quickly. We're all just a couple minutes out. It is each RECE's individual responsibility to participate in the CPL program. And as employers, you're not responsible for ensuring that employees are compliant with the program. However, there are opportunities for you to support staff. It could be by you're engaging today to become familiar with and understanding the requirements of the program, having discussions and sharing of ideas and resources. Again, NREC is not required to share what their goal is, but that is a possibility, and that's one way you could potentially support them. Maybe it can be linked with their employer performance or development process as one of their goals there. So again, that capacity to think about, okay, how does this learn? How can I create a learning goal that's going to fit within the context of my workplace, and also potentially also offer time for them to complete their requirements. We've mentioned a few areas where you can go and find resources. So there's the notice. We do circulate also an employer newsletter, which sometimes features articles about the program. There are the web pages and some employer-focused frequently asked questions. If you have questions following today's session, by all means, do give us a call or send us an email.